Welcome to Dbvii recap video. Sit back and enjoy as we reminisce the highs and lows of this season. Dan has been with us since the beginning for 7 years, has won it all once, gaining a ring, and has lost twice, kinda. He's in fact our most recent loser, looking to redeem himself. Rev, a 2-year player and last year's runner-up, trying to prove his rookie season wasn't a fluke. Cameron, a 6-year player and our first expansion member, has never won it all, but has lost once. Joel, another founding member of 7 years, won Db1 and won Db6 last year to get his first true ring.
This is my year. I'm calling it now. You can record this shit. I don't give a fuck. Ring me. Ring me.
Dylan, another founding member with 1 ring and 0 losses. Ed, part of the second wave of expansion teams, has been here for 5 years and never won a ring, but also never lost. James is this year's only rookie and definitely not just Rev in disguise. Charlie is another second wave expansion member who has lost twice but yet to win. Victor, another founding member and the only 2 ring holder in the entire league. The start of any season brings boundless optimism and joy. Everybody thinks this could be my year. People laugh and joke about who the funniest person would be to do this year's punishment or stand-up comedy, with jokes written by everybody else. But at the end of the day, there can only be 1 winner, and there will always be 1 loser. A strong start in weeks 1 through 5 can really make the difference when it comes to its final standings. Through the early parts of the season, Victor jumped out, winning 4 games with incredibly high scores, and only dropped 1 game against Cameron in week 4. Cameron himself managed to finish with a 3-2 record, but sat alone in second place in his conference. After losing 2 games, Dylan also managed to finish with a 3-2 record during this time, after winning 3 in a row. This 3-2 record was joint first in his conference and tied with Justin, who'd managed to beat Dylan in week 1, and James, who was this year's rookie, proving he'd be a force to be reckoned with. Below them, with 2 and 3 records was Joel and Rev, who played in last year's championship game, and Ed, whose 2 wins showed signs of him becoming a true competitor of this year. At the bottom, after 5 weeks, was Dan with a 1 and 4 record, his only win coming against Cameron in week 5. This win was said to be motivated by Dan reliving the memories from the Dbvii recap video. So, after 5 weeks, Victor stood tall at the top of his conference, followed by Cameron, Charlie and Rev, with Dan at the bottom with a 1 and 4 record. Meanwhile, in the other conference, Dylan, Justin and James all sat on 3 and 2 records in first place, followed by Ed and Joel, who both had 2 and 3 records. With 10 weeks left to go, no one knew how this season would pan out. With the initial groundwork laid in weeks 1 through 5, some people may have been resigned to their lot. However, for some, it was a time to move up in the world and find a better location on top of the leaderboard. Charlie, who had been rather middle of the pack up until now, has started to trend the wrong way with another loss against Justin in week 6 and then Dylan in week 7 before beating Joel in week 8. Although that win was short-lived as he lost again to Ed in week 9 before beating Cameron in week 10. Overall, Charlie's season had been rather middle of the pack up until now, and he was hovering at 4 and 6, not quite in the playoff picture, but not quite out. During weeks 6 through 10, both Ed and Justin were the ones to beat, both going 4 and 1. However, both lost in week 10. Justin lost to James, hopefully not a sign of things to come for him, and Dylan beat a surging Ed to prevent him from cracking the top 3. Both Victor and Dylan entered this period at the top of their conferences, and both went 3 and 2. This consistency made both Dylan and Victor potential favourites to win it all. Rev also went 3 and 2 during this period, and finally got his first win against Joel since joining the league. Dan started off the period with another win in week 6, winning his second game overall and in a row. It looks like his fortunes may change, however losing in weeks 7, 9 and 10 prevented any chance of a resurgence to the middle of the pack for now. During this time, the big losers were both Joel and Cameron, who only managed to win 1 out of the 5 games through this entire period. Both wins came during week 9 as Joel beat James and Cameron beat Dan. So, at the end of this period, Victor stood tall at 7 and 3 at the top of his conference, followed by Rev at 5 and 5, Cameron at 4 and 6, Charlie 4 and 6, and Dan at 3 and 7. Meanwhile, in the other conference, Justin matched Victor's record of 7 and 3, both Dylan and Ed at 6 and 4, James at 5 and 5, and Joel joined Dan at 3 and 7. Going into weeks 11 through 15, it was the final stretch. For those in the middle of the table, they could potentially secure a wildcard spot, and for those at the top of the table, they were looking to reach what seemed to be the magical number of 8 wins to secure their playoff spot. At the top of the table, Victor and Justin sat upon their thrones, 1 win away from this magical 8th win that all but secured a playoff spot. However, for Justin, Ed and Dylan were breathing down his neck and wanted the top of the conference to themselves. they weren't content with just the 2 wins they would need to secure a wildcard spot. They wanted blood. Rev and James would need at least 3 wins out of the final 5 games to reach this magical 8th win. Would they be able to do it? Only time will tell. Meanwhile, Cameron and Charlie seemed a little less hopeful about making the playoffs, as both would need 4 wins to reach the magical number of 8. At the bottom of the table stood Dan and Joel. Each would need a miraculous run and a lot of things to go their way to even stand a chance at making the playoffs. But at the end of the day, nothing is secure in this crazy topsy-turvy world. I mean, one may even sneak in with a lucky number 7. The countdown was on.
5.
Justin loses a second game in a row to Joel. Dylan beat Cameron to take first place in his conference away from Justin. Victor beat Dan and can now win his conference with 1 more win next week. Charlie beat Rev to keep his playoff hopes alive. And James beat Ed and is now well and truly back in the playoff mix.
4.
Cameron beat Rev, hampering Rev's ambitions to get a wildcard spot. Dylan beat James and can now make the playoffs with 1 more win. Dan beat Justin, who has now lost 3 in a row. Ed beat Joel, putting him 1 loss away from elimination. And the first to make the playoffs was Victor by beating Charlie.
Three.
Cameron beat an already playoff-bound Victor to keep his playoff hopes alive. Dan beat Charlie for his 2nd win in a row, and now Charlie can be eliminated with 1 more loss. James beat Rev and has positioned himself to make the playoffs with 1 more win. Ed beat Justin, making Justin's 4th loss in a row. Ed now only needs 1 more win to secure the playoffs, and so does Justin. However, in week 13, Joel was eliminated by Dylan, who had now secured a playoff spot.
Two.
Joel beat Cameron, which hurt Cameron's chances of stealing Justin's playoff spot. Rev beat Justin, ending his own little losing streak, and now pushing Justin's losing streak all the way to 5. Dan beat an already playoff-bound Dylan to secure his 3rd win in a row, and now he could really make the playoffs. James was able to secure his playoff spot by eliminating Charlie. Ed was beaten by Victor. However, because of everything else, Ed had now secured his playoff spot.
One.
There was 1 spot left and 4 people all racing to secure it. The 4-way race was between Justin, Dan, Rev and Cameron. Justin was in pole position and all he had to do was win. Dan was next in line and he needed to both beat Justin and outscore him by at least 31 points, a tall order. Rev would need a win, Justin to lose, and he would need to outscore Dan and Justin. And at the back of the pack was Cameron, who needed the same outcome as Rev, however, he was already 43 points behind Justin, so his mountain was even higher to climb. Rev was beaten by Joel, and Cameron beaten by Dylan. This meant all eyes were on the matchup between Justin and Dan. Dan got out to an early lead and was all but certain to win. However, winning was not enough for Dan. He needed to beat Justin by at least 31 points. And going into that night, it was possible. However, he still needed a few things to go his way. The morning came, and with it, certainty. Dan had beaten Justin and managed to outscore Justin, giving him 0.6 points more than Justin in terms of points for across the season. This was enough to secure Dan his playoff position and put Justin in the losers bracket.
What does it feel like to make the playoffs?
I mean, semi-unbelievable. Sense of delirium at the moment. After week 4, I was definitely not expecting to get anywhere near the playoffs. After week 10, I was definitely not expecting to. Well, even after that, I wasn't expecting to. You know, sometimes circumstances come together. I went on a win streak. Someone, I can't remember who, went on a losing streak, and to win by 32 points in the final game, unbelievable. What's it look like? It's amazing. Guess someone was just looking down on me that day.
We're here now with Justin. Justin, please give us a breakdown on what I think went wrong during your season.
I think it's my incompetence, my inability to realise my team sucks, major balls. Oh no, this is my year. Wrong place, wrong time. This, I got two copies. 400 in the bag. Clean up. So yeah, go Dbvii tanks. Ring me.
And with that, the playoffs were set. Dylan was in first, Victor second, Ed third, James fourth, and Dan fifth. The top 3 would all get a bye week, whilst Dan would have to play James for his right to enter the final 4. On the loser's side, Justin had fallen to 6th, Cameron 7th, Joel finished 8th, Rev 9th, and Charlie was 10th. All that's left now was to wait and see what happens in the playoffs. Welcome to round 1 of the playoffs, where some were holding on for that chance to win it all, and others were trying to get out of having to do the stand-up comedy punishment. In round 1, there were only 3 games. In the winners bracket, James at the 4th seed was playing Dan at the 5th seed for the right to enter the final 4. Dylan in 1st, Victor in 2nd, and Ed in 3rd all had bye weeks. In the losers bracket, Justin, who had slipped to the 6th seed after an horrendous choke, was playing Cameron, who was the 7th seed, and Joel, the 8th seed, was playing Rev, who was the 9th seed, and Charlie was the only player to have a bye week, having dropped to the 10th seed. In the only game on the winners bracket side, despite an impressive run by Dan to get to this point, he was taken out by a blistering James, who outscored him 128 to 96, ending Dan's dream run of winning it all. Meanwhile, in the losers bracket, an extremely low score by Cameron allowed Justin to break his 6-game losing streak and meant he no longer had to worry about the punishment. In Joel and Rev's game, Joel seemed to have it all but locked off, only needing 10 points from his QB in the final game to win, and not to worry about the loser's game. However, a poor performance by Brock Purdy added to Joel's woes and sent him straight to the final loser's game, but was a great relief to Rev. And with that, the final four were set. Dylan would be playing James, Ed would be playing Victor, and in the losers bracket, Joel was the first to enter the losers game. Cameron would have one more chance to escape, playing Charlie in round 2. However, for Rev, Dan and Justin, the sun had set on their season and they could sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome to round 2. For some, the dread of losing it all has gone, and for others, the dream of winning it all is over. There were only 3 games again in round 2. 2 of these games gave you the right to enter the championship game and have a chance at winning it all. In the final 4, we had Dylan, who had won it all once, looking to enter the finals for the second time, playing against James, this year's rookie. On the other side, we had Victor, a 2-time ring holder, looking to enter the finals for the 4th time, playing Ed, who is yet to win it all, but has never lost. Meanwhile, the one game in the losers bracket would be to see who plays Joel in the final losers game. Cameron, who had lost once overall, was playing Charlie, who had already lost twice overall. For one, the chance of losing it all again was about to become a real possibility. In the matchup of Cameron vs Charlie, Cameron's team finally rediscovered the form they were missing and proved that a healthy Cameron team may have had a chance of winning it all. However, this was the losers bracket, so all this great game did was push Charlie into the final losers game against Joel. In the matchup between Dylan and James, Dylan went on to show James why he's been a top tier player throughout this season. He handily beat James 121-70. This meant Dylan would enter the finals for the second time.
No. Ow, ow, ow.
The matchup between Ed and Victor was a close one. In the end, there was only 8 points between them, but Victor had managed to squeeze out a win and enter the finals for the 4th time, and was hungry for his 3rd ring. And with that, the sun had set on a few more seasons. However, the stage was set. In the losers game, we had Joel vs Charlie, and then in the championship game, we had Dylan vs Victor. This was it. 15 regular season games, 2 rounds of playoffs, and now we were in the final week. On the losers' side, we had Joel, who had never lost at all, playing Charlie, who had lost twice overall. Both wanted to avoid the punishment of having to do stand-up comedy, but even more than that, both wanted to avoid the shame that came with the loss. In the championship game, we had Victor, who had won it twice overall, playing Dylan, who had won once overall. Both would be looking to win another ring to add to their collection and make that hand a little heavier when showing off their wins. However, this dream could only come true for one of them. On the losers' side, the game was neck and neck after the early games. Neither Joel nor Charlie had a strong foothold going into the final game of the NFL season. Both had 2 players left to play. A restless night was in store for both players. However, for one, the result they were looking for had come to pass. Joel had beaten Charlie by 13 points and managed to escape having to do the punishment, and now Charlie had lost 3 times overall. In the championship game, the players that managed to bring Dylan and Victor so far had been rested, meaning both would have to field an unusual and unproven team in this final game. Dylan had managed to assemble a strong team ready for this moment. However, it fell short as Victor won 116 to 106, and Victor was able to get the win and secure his 3rd ring. And with that, the Dbvii season was over. Victor was our 3-time winner now, and Charlie a 3-time loser. But more importantly than both of those, Justin had an absolutely hilarious choke, which I doubt anyone will ever forget. Now, before we go, it's time for the regular season awards. First, we have Defensive Player of the Year, and this award goes to Joel. Next up, we have Offensive Player of the Year, and this award goes to Dylan.
Ow, ow, ow.
And finally, we have MVP, as voted for by the players. And this year's MVP is Victor. Just to finish, we'd like to say a big thank you for everybody that's taken part in this season. It's our 7th year, and we keep on this going. I want to say a big thank you to all the girlfriends for listening to all our NFL talk throughout this regular season, and more importantly, enjoy the Super Bowl. Plus, there's also some final awards, so if you look over to your right, Joel will start with the awards. You're welcome, Joel.